Hi, everybody. Chris Tim here from Sundela Consulting. We're MSP consultants specializing in helping MSPs get the best out of Autotask. With me today, I have my good friend, Travis Austin from MSP Integrations, and he's going to talk to us today all about the email to AT product. So, hey, Travis, how are you doing?
I'm great, Chris. It's so good to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, it's great to see you again. I know we've spoken many times in the past, so it was good to get you on and um, get you demoing the product. So,
I
do you
think
want
we
to
met
just
when
tell
you
us?
worked for Autotask back in the day. You and I have known each other off and on for years and years and years. So it's fun to do this with you.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I worked back in Autotask back in around 2011, but I think we knew each other long before that as well.
Yeah.
Probably when I had my MSP business, way back in the day. So yeah, we've known each other for a very long time. So and I actually remember weirdly, I'm going to actually put you on the spot. I'm sure people can
Uh-oh.
find this on YouTube, but I actually remember a video that you did um, in Starbucks, and you were kind of sitting with your feet on the table and talking all the task and stuff. So um, I remember it's probably still on YouTube actually somewhere.
Probably out there somewhere.
Yeah. So if we can find it, I'll link to it on the notes on this video. So,
Great.
do you want to just tell us a little bit about who you are and why you started the company and what it does?
Yeah. So I've been in the MSP space probably since the early 2000s. I started a break fix company. We moved into managed services and we adopted Autotask probably in about 2008 or so, and in my MSP. And at that time, there was no way to get emails into Autotask. And what I found was that my customers were emailing me or other people in my MSP reporting a problem like a printer's broken or something like that. And it never made it into Autotask because no one created a ticket. Someone would fix the issue, and then we never had any visibility into it. So when we first adopted Autotask, that's what kind of what we found. I knew a little bit about API programming at the time, and I wrote just a really simple way for my customers to email us and create a ticket in Autotask from that email. And that really helped our team to stay on top of things and make sure that all the requests we got were in Autotask. So I built this thing. I was asked to share about it at an Autotask community event. So I came and I said, hey guys, look what you could do with the API. Look what you can write. Look at the things you can do to make your business better. And I walked out of that session with a whole stack of business cards of people said, we don't want to write anything to the API, but what you've done looks really cool. Can we buy it from you? And so that's kind of how MSP integration started. I had an MSP, I had a need, so I filled it. And then a whole bunch of other people thought it was pretty cool. So fast forward about 10 years, I sold my MSP in the late, probably about 2018. Found another buyer locally here who's a great guy, and he's done really good things with my customers. And it was just a really good transition out. And so for the last 2.5 years, I've been working full time on MSP integrations, really making the product everything I wish it always was. And we had a good product before. I'm really proud of what we have now. We can do some really, really creative things that hopefully we can get into in a little bit. But we even have customers who are finding like, hey, I can't do work with the Autotask workflow engine, for example. So they'll even have the Autotask workflow engine create an email to AT, and then have email to AT go into Autotask and do what they wish the Autotask workflow engine would do, for example.
Wow.
So it's been fun to watch people use the product really creatively and come up with some really interesting solutions. But yeah, that's the really short answer.
Yeah, I actually can imagine you probably had a lot of people in those days, you know, biting your arm off to get the product because those were the days when Autotask didn't even have
Yeah.
an email parser at all. There just was no such thing. And so, yeah, and so I'm sure that was something that a lot of people needed, a lot of people wanted to use. So, and what you say about the workflows in Autotask. I've actually spoken to a couple of my clients who are your clients too, who kind of say they're doing some really funky stuff with your product. So I'm intrigued to see how you could do something like that and how it works. So, I don't know if you want to kind of just give us a rundown of the product, show us what it can do, and maybe show us some funky things that somebody might not know the product is capable of doing.
Yeah, for sure. Before I get into it, I'll say that I'm finding building this product, I'm finding it really helpful to have my own background in the MSP world, because people will call me with the weird, what I feel like is the weirdest request. Like, okay, I want to pull this kind of information out of Autotask in this particular use case and only update it in certain ways. And I'm like, man, that's the most obscure workflow ever, but I'm happy to say I think we can do it. Like, we have flexibility in the product that lets lots of people kind of solve really, really niche cases. Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm excited to see what you've got. I did see it a while ago. I know you and I had a demo, a few months back, and I'm sure it's come on a long way since then. So, this is going to be the first time I'm seeing a lot of the newer stuff that you got out as well.
Yeah, cool. Well, let me share my screen here.
Okay.
So this is what the console looks like when you first log into the system. And what you're looking at here is a list of email addresses that are hosted by email to AT. So this very, very first one, for example, is crm@travis.mxparser.net. That would just be the email address that you use for this particular mailbox. And so what we've done here is created a whole bunch of mailboxes that do different things. And so this mailbox here would be specifically for Sophos alerts. And so you as an MSP might configure your Sophos system to email sophos-alerts@travis.mspiparser.com. And then inside of this mailbox, we might have rules that know how to specifically deal with Sophos and create tickets, update tickets, close tickets, that kind of thing. So
can I just ask on that that list there of domains? So you've got all your kind of MXI parser. Can I, as an MSP, or anyone who's watching this, can they use their own domain in here, or do they have to use your ones that you've got there?
Yeah. So if we scroll to the very bottom, you'll see down here, here's a list of domains active for this particular account. And if we wanted to add another domain to the account, which an MSP can add as many as they need, they just click add new domain. They can do a hosted domain, which is where they pick the prefix. So I might say Travis dot, and then here's a couple of domains that we own and host. And so if I did like travis.onmspi.com, as soon as I click activate, it would be live and ready to go, and I could send emails there. I have a lot of customers, and probably my favorite way to do it is using what we call a custom domain. So this is where you might have, if your MSP was mymsp.com, you might create like alerts.mymsp.com, point the MX records to these two mail servers, and then you would create email boxes on our system at alerts.mymsp. So it might be like Sophos at alerts.mymsp, or webroot at alerts.mymsp.com, et cetera, et cetera. And so in that way, they can pick whatever domains they want. They can completely white label it so their customers never see it. Never know it's us, actually. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. And these, where is this hosted? Is this in the US, or have you got servers anywhere else?
So we host in AWS, Amazon Web Services. Right now, our system is live in the US East region, which means it's out of Virginia in the United States. I'm happy to report that we are in the midst of a additional deployment to the UK, actually, in the process. And it should be done in the next 3 weeks or so. So we have one particular customer who I think is a mutual customer of ours who asked for that, and we're able to make that happen. So that'll be exciting. And then it took a lot of work to get the logic that we needed to have multiple regions. Now that we'll be able to have multiple, then it should be easy to add, Australia or whatever else we need. So as of today, it's all in the US, but right around the corner, we'll be able to allow you to pick whatever data center you want.
Awesome. That's cool.
Yeah. Back to the domains real quick, just kind of a side note. When I had my MSP, I had if my MSP was called my MSP, if that was the name of it, I had mymsp.com was like my regular domain for my website and my email and everything. And then I created another domain called mymsp123.com. And that domain I pointed to email to AT. And then if you went to that website in your browser, it redirected to our Screen Connect or remote control software. So it made it really easy on the phone with customers. I would say, they'd say, hey, we need help. And it might be on a computer that's not in our RMM. I would say, just go to www.mymsp123.com in your web browser, and it goes right to where they need. And then if we had any alerts or any automated systems or even people, they could email specific email addresses at mymsp123.com, and all that went to email to AT. So I just say that to say that the domains hosted in our system can be top-level domains or subdomains. Nothing stops you from pointing like a root domain directly to the system here.
Cool. Well, that's awesome.
So I'll just show you an example of one of these mailboxes. Obviously, we can receive emails and create tickets in Autotask. It's a pretty standard, I'll say boring feature. It works well, but it does kind of what Autotask can do. We can do that where we create a ticket based on the sender's email address, but really where we shine is with creative workflows. So you might have an email coming from a web form, and the web form might always have the from address of webform@mydomain.com. And using the Autotask built-in parser, all of your tickets will always be assigned to the same account, probably your 0 account. With our system, you can actually extract the sender's email address from the body of the email and tell our system where to find it, and then use that to identify the contact that we're going to associate the ticket to. So now we're going to get tickets created for the right person in the right account. This first example I'm going to show you, I'll open it up, crm@travis.mxparser.net. This is an example of an email that we created that lets, how would I word this? So let's say I'm an MSP, and let's say I'm emailing my customer directly from my personal inbox to his personal inbox. This allows me to CC or add a carbon copy on the outbound email, and I would CC crm@travis.mxparser.net. And this particular mailbox has rules inside of it that I'll show you in a moment that would look at the incoming email, see who it's from and who it's to. So in this case, it'd be from me to my customer. And it would look up the customer in Autotask and create a note on their account. So this way I can email my customer directly and carbon copy my PSA basically, and have a note added to their account every time I send them an email. And then when they respond, if they reply all, then they would also have crm@travis.mxparser.net CC'd on there. And in that case, their response would also go to a note on the Autotask account. So this is just kind of a way that you could have account management, emailing a customer directly, not in Autotask, but have a copy of it all in Autotask automatically.
So you don't need to basically use the Outlook plugin, or the Autotask Outlook plugin, which does the same job as that pretty much.
Yeah, so the Outlook plugin requires you to open an extra screen, select the customer, do some clicks. This way, you just send an email and you just add one extra email address in the carbon copy and you're done. In fact, this logic could even, with our remote mailbox feature, which we haven't really talked about, but this could actually log into your Office 365 and just watch your sent folder and do the same thing. Every email you send, we would just watch it. And if it was sent to someone in your Autotask, we create a note on that Autotask account and contact. And if not, we just ignore it. And then you don't even have to CC anybody. Then it's just kind of magic and happens in the background. That's how I do it in my personal inbox, and it's great. So Chris, all the emails you've sent me are in my Autotask associated to you. And you've never done anything different. I've never done anything different. It just kind of does it.
That's awesome. Wow. Just that on its own, I think people watching this now are probably filling in the form now to sign up with you just for that feature alone, right?
Yeah, and this is just the first mailbox. I still got 15 to go through. Just kidding.
Absolutely.
So let me show you how the mailbox is actually built. So I've explained the logic of it. You know what it's going to do, but let me show you what it looks like to actually configure it. So over here on the right, I have this edit button. I'm just going to edit this mailbox. And inside of the mailbox, we've got a couple rules here that are loading. Actually, there's only one rule, which makes sense here. So basically, this is kind of inside the mailbox. This is what it looks like. This is the email address. And then I've got a series of rules. And if I had more than one, I could order them. And what we do is we always process the rules top down in order until you tell us to stop. And each rule can have an expression on it that can optionally fire or not based on the criteria. In this particular use case, we will want every single message that comes into this mailbox, we want that rule to fire. So this rule here will fire on every single message, but we could have a rule that says, if the from address is XYZ, then take some extra special action, or if the subject line contains some text, or if the body contains some text, and things like that. So that's kind of the concept of the mailbox. We've got these rules, they fire in order. Let me open up this rule and show you how the actual rule is built. Let it load here. There we go. Okay. All right, so inside the rule, we've got a series of steps. In these steps, we have 4 of them. This is the order they fire, and order is important because we're kind of building a script. So if I needed to move the order, I could just reorder them here, but this order is important. So I'll kind of describe the steps and then I'll show you what's inside of them. So the first step in this example is we're going to query Autotask for the recipient of the email. So this is going to be, these are going to take care of emails from me to other people. This is going to always look up who it's sent to and see if they exist as a contact in Autotask. Then in step 2, we're going to check and see if we're going to look at the sender. So in this case, it's me. And we're going to find a resource in Autotask, or an employee or a user in Autotask that matches my address. So we're going to find my user account in Autotask. And then in step 3, if we found a contact, then we're going to add a new note to that contact and that account. And then in step 4, we're going to tell it to stop processing this email in case there was another rule after it in the mailbox that might fire for a catch-all, or, you know, hey, if this particular rule doesn't do anything, then the next rule will fire. So this step 4 is just going to basically say, we're good. We don't need to take any other action on this email. So go ahead and stop processing it. Okay. So let's look inside step 1. This is the one where I'm looking up the recipient of the email in Autotask to see if they're a contact. So as I expand this step here, you can see that we are taking this action. So here's all the actions we can take in each of these steps. We can do things like creating things in Autotask, updating, querying things in Autotask. We can do regular expression matches, and some other things, but those are the basics, is basically doing API calls to Autotask. So this first step, we're going to query Autotask for a contact. By the way, here's all the things we can query for. So we can look up every single API entity that they give you access to. So if you wanted to look up an invoice or a configuration item, or, you know, anything that Autotask exposes on the API, we give you the access to do that. In this case, we're going to look for a contact. And then here's our query builder that says, what are we actually querying Autotask for? So here's all the fields on the contact. And in this case, I want to look for a contact where active is 1. So it's an active contact. And the email address equals the recipient, or email address 2 equals the recipient, or email address 3 equals the recipient. So we're basically going to find an active contact with the email address that I'm sending the email to. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Okay.
And then we're going to take that contact and we're going to store it in a property on a variable. And this is where it kind of is like a scripting language. We're going to call it on a property called existing contact. And so later, in later steps, we'll have access to custom.existingContact, and we'll have the entire object of the contact, the ID, the name, the address, the phone number, everything we got back from Autotask will be available to us to use. And I'll show you how we use it in just a second. So in step 2, we're now going to do another query to Autotask, same kind of thing. We're now looking for a resource. So this is an Autotask user where active is 1. So it's an active user. And again, where the email or email 2 or email 3 equals the sender. So email from address, basically the person sending the email, we're looking for a resource that matches them. And we're going to call the result of that custom.existingResource. So at the end of step 2, I now theoretically have 2 objects. I have a contact and a resource that we pulled from Autotask. And now we're going to create something new in Autotask using those 2 things in step 3. And that's going to be creating an account note. And so these are all the things we can create in Autotask. We're going to create an account note. Here are all the fields on the account note that I don't have listed here. So here's most of the fields here: account ID, contact ID, assigned resource ID, what kind of action, what is the end date, what's the name of the note, what's the note itself, what's the start date on the note. And then there's other fields up here I could add that I'm not using. So I just have them hidden.
Can we add, yeah, I was going to say, can we, does that include UDFs as well? So can we sort of write into a UDF? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So on like a ticket, we could extract some information from the incoming email and populate a UDF on the ticket, or update the UDF on an account. Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
So here we're going to create this account note. And if you remember in step 1 and 2, we grabbed the contact and we grabbed the resource. So the account ID on the note, I'm going to get that from the contact I got that matched. And so if you recall, I said I have custom.existingContact. I'm just going to delete this and show you. I can type in something, or I can use my curly brace, and all of a sudden I have a list of those variables that are available. So here's all the dynamic data that I could put into the account ID field at runtime. And I'm going to come down here. I'm going to look for custom.existingContact.account ID. So this is the account ID of the contact we found. That's the account ID we're going to put the note on. So I'm going to put that there. And then the contact ID will be the same thing. It's the existing contact ID, or the ID of the contact we found. So this is going to create a note on the account and the contact we found. the assigned resource for the note is going to show the existing resource ID. In other words, the person sending the email. The note type is a note. So here's all the different note types that this particular Autotask instance supports. And I could just select this. If I wanted to dynamically populate this with a variable at runtime, I could unlock the field, and now I can type whatever I want, including using a value of a variable. But in this case, it's always going to be a note. So I will just select note and hard code that and not do anything at runtime to select that. The end date. So let's go ahead and delete this field, and I'm going to dynamically put the date in, and I'm going to say, I want it to be now plus 15 minutes. And so this will dynamically insert a timestamp that's 15 minutes from right now. And then the start time is going to do the timestamp as of right now. And then the name of the note will say copy of email : space followed by the email subject line. And then the note itself. I'm having trouble hearing you. My watch just heard me say something. I'm going to take it off. So the note itself will say from : and have the email address, and to : have the email address, subject, and then the body. And so the note on the Autotask contact and account will look like this. And I could put whatever other information I want in here. So we have kind of a templating engine where we could put whatever we need. We can insert any of these variables. I could even insert like the contact's address if I wanted, because I have that information that I pulled from Autotask. So it's available to me in all the steps later. Okay. And then in step 4, here, we're going to just stop processing the email. So we've just come down here and said, this step here is going to stop processing the message completely. We're totally done at this point, and there's no other work to do on this email, so we're good. So that's kind of how we build this CRM at ability to carbon copy this address.
And this is out of the box, or does the sort of MSP have to build this themselves for the CRM one?
Yeah, so a lot of it is out of the box. I'm back in the Mailbox window now. So this is back in the CRM at travis.mxparser.net. Here's my list of rules. If I create this mailbox from scratch, I'm going to have no rules by default. But then I can click on import from library. And this is going to show me a list of some library examples. And I could come through here and find a lot of things we've created for you, where you can just one-click import it. Or if there's something close to what you want, you can use it as a starting place. So in this CRM example, I think it's in here, right here at the top, CRM BCC messages. I just click import. That's going to bring in those actions that I have here, and I save it. And now you'll notice I have 2 copies of that rule because I just imported this one from the library. But I could change it. I can use it as an example, or I can just use it right there out of the box.
Okay. And this is the one where you say, so they have to use this as the BCC or the CC in the email. This isn't the one that's kind of watching your sent items at the moment, or is it the same rule that it uses?
Correct. This one, because it's on a hosted mailbox, the hosted mailboxes don't watch your Office 365 sent folder or inbox, but you could build a rule in a remote mailbox that's designed to watch your sent folder and do it silently.
Okay. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So just a question then, you were talking about, you mentioned invoices earlier on as one of the entities that we could pull. So yeah. Could we have a rule inside an email that maybe a customer says, can you send me my last invoice? I didn't get it. And we go in and find the invoice from Autotask and send it to the customer.
Yeah, so that particular example is going to be a little harder only because the last invoice is a little bit of a challenging query to do to Autotask. There's not a good way to say, I want to sort the results backwards and pick the last one. If you happen to ask, I want the first invoice, that's really easy. But in your particular example, that's a little complicated. But the idea of that is true. So I'll give you another example. I have this who am I down here, who am I at mycoolmsp@mxparser.net. This mailbox does something similar to what you're talking about. This, when someone emails who am I, actually people on this video, you could actually do it and it will probably come back with no data because you're probably not in my sandbox Autotask. But this is going to look at the sender of the email, pull up their account in Autotask, their contact in my sandbox Autotask, and their client portal user in my sandbox Autotask, and then respond to the email with a JSON object, just a dump of the data of the account, the contact, and the client portal account. And so this is an example of a way that I want to email into Autotask, have it look up some information and email it back to me. And this does just, like I said, your contact, your account, and your client portal. But you could do it with an invoice number. If you said, send invoice number, whatever to me, we could query for that invoice number and then send back the invoice and a list of items on the invoice. So.
Okay. And actually, that's probably more likely what somebody would do, right? Is I'm missing invoice 123. Can you resend it? Right. So yes. I guess then they could have that inside the email saying, please resend invoice 123.
Yeah, I've seen some people have it query Autotask for open tickets that are assigned to a person as an Autotask user, or they're associated with a contact, and send back a list of the open tickets for that person. So that's kind of one interesting way that someone's using it. I don't particularly like that because I feel like there's some security implications to allowing anyone to retrieve a list of tickets that they're associated to that way. But those are all possible technically if that fits your workflow.
Absolutely. And in terms of integrating with other sort of tools, so just thinking out loud here, really, in terms of like a HubSpot or Active Campaign. I mean, if I've got something in one of those tools, can I retrieve something out of there and stick it into Autotask? Or
yeah, so our system lets you use a regular expression or text matching to, when an incoming email comes in, to extract information from that email. So if HubSpot or Active Campaign is sending out an email to an address that ends up at email to AT, you could have email to AT look for like the word name, space, something, and take the part after that and hold it in a variable, and then take another part of the email and hold it in a variable, and then create a new contact in Autotask for that email address, that name, and all the things you extracted from the incoming email. So on the marketing side, you could totally do that. You could even use the Autotask API to then associate that person with a contact group in Autotask if you wanted to, or take them out of a contact group, or update a UDF on them, create a ticket for them. Kind of the sky's the limit. I'm just thinking, what are the things you might want to do with that? And you can, anything the Autotask API will let you do, our system gives you access to do those things.
Okay. And then equally, I guess and this is one that comes up a lot, and I think you mentioned this right in the beginning, is, if I send an email, I'm the customer and I'm sending an email from chris@gmail.com. It doesn't know who I am, but is there some way that it can go, hey, I know that chris@gmail.com is actually this guy and this contact, and automatically associate me with the right company?
Yeah, so the way I would do that is I would have you add chris@gmail.com in Autotask on the contact on one of the alternate email fields. Yeah. And then we would just say, here are the 3 fields of email. Did any of them match chris@gmail.com?
Okay. All right. So you'd still have to have it as the contact in Autotask. It wouldn't. So because in my case, if it was chris.tim@gmail.com, now you've got my first name and my last name.
Sure.
Could you then match that?
Totally. You'd have to build that logic, but it would be very simple to say, hey, we're going to create a ticket for anyone who emails in. If we don't find a contact and the part before the @ sign has 2 words with a period, I want to separate those at the period, and then see if there's any Autotask contacts that match the first name dot last name that's in the part before the @ sign. And if we happen to have a match there, then associate the ticket with that contact. You could totally do that.
Okay, that would be cool.
Yeah, that's a good idea. No one's asked that before, so.
Yeah, and because a lot of people, obviously, you wouldn't be able to do it if it was, just Chris because it could be any Chris. But I guess if it was first name dot last name, then, or I guess some variation of that, right? So chris.t @ and then you could kind of assume that it's going to be, I guess if you got more than one Chris T, it might be a bit of a problem, but I guess you would be able to, figure it out and associate it at some point.
Yeah. The example you're giving is, I call it an email from a person as opposed to an email from an automated system. And emails from people are always a little bit more challenging because you never know what's in the body of the email. They're all formatted differently. The sender can kind of be anything. So I generally don't put too much automation on emails from people. I just kind of like, if we can find a match, create the ticket for the contact, great. If we can't find a match, then create a ticket in Autotask somewhere else. And then just manually fix that later. I just find that it's hard to automate the emails from people, but it's the automated systems that send emails in that is really fun to create automations for. And that's where I see tons of value in our users building interesting workflows.
Yeah. And I guess this could then also be if, and I get this quite a lot as well, where, an MSP might be working with another company that has their own internal IT or their own internal service desk. So they could then send a ticket out of their service desk into Autotask and capture that information and, and then again, put it against the right company or update the ticket, whatever the case might be.
Yeah. So like the first email you got for a particular ticket number from that outside company, we would have it create a new ticket in Autotask and then add that ticket number from the outside company in a UDF on that ticket in Autotask. And then the next time a ticket came from that outside company with that ticket number, we would find the existing ticket with that ticket number and update it. So now outside systems sending emails to Autotask, our system knows how to create the ticket when it needs to be created or update it when it needs to be updated. And you no longer have this bombardment of a new ticket every single time that outside system sends an email in. And then you have all these new tickets that are related that you're trying to merge and everything else. So our system just intelligently puts those together for you.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's really cool. So you mentioned in the beginning about, somebody replacing the, I guess, using this to replace the workflow in Autotask. So do you want to kind of talk through that a little bit? And, if you've got an example of how somebody might have done that?
Yeah. So I have to start by saying that because of the way the system works, users can kind of build whatever they want. And I only hear about it if they have a question on how, like, hey, I'm stuck at this spot. Can you help me with it? Or I stumble across their workflows. So I know of a few examples, and I know there's more examples of people that have built really cool stuff that I don't even know about, which is pretty fun to be in that kind of position where, like, hey, we built this cool tool and people are doing really neat stuff with it. The example I can think of would be like, probably the simplest example would be an Autotask workflow that needs to change the account of a ticket. So you could think of something in Autotask where like a particular ticket shows up a certain way. We always want to change the account from, whatever account it was over to this other specific account because that's how it always needs to be. So we're trying to build a workflow for that. Well, the Autotask workflow engine doesn't let you edit an account on a ticket. Yeah. And so you kind of feel like, well, I'm just stuck. I can't do anything here. So in that case, when that question comes to me, I say, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to build a workflow in Autotask that when it triggers, however you've decided it needs to trigger, we're going to have it trigger like normal. But instead of that workflow rule updating the account on the ticket, we're going to have that workflow rule send an email to AT with only one thing in the email, the ticket number in the subject line of the email. Then email to AT is going to get an email coming in with a ticket number in the subject line, and we're going to have it sent to a very specific email address. So we're going to create like this, Kaseya Traverse Alerts at travis@mxparser.net or whatever it is. We're going to have Autotask email that very specific email address, the ticket number of the ticket, and then email to AT, pulls that ticket with the API, updates the account or whatever it is we wanted to do that the Autotask workflow engine won't let you do. And then now you've made the Autotask workflow engine do extra stuff that it doesn't support out of the box just by sending a quick email over to our side.
That's awesome. I'm actually going to have a look at that, and I'm probably going to get you to help me with that after this call because
great.
There's literally, I hear that pretty much most of the time, right? Because as you say, you can't update the company details from within the built-in workflows. So that would be an awesome thing to be able to do just by sending an email. Yeah.
You can mark a contact inactive, which is something you can't do with a workflow. You could even mark a contact inactive and create a new contact on a different account with all the information from the first contact. So kind of move the contact between accounts, but you're really copying it. But still, the effect of contact was on account A, I need them over on account B. We could totally do that with a workflow as well.
Okay, so that would be good, I guess, if that contact moves from one company to another, you could just use this to completely move that contact.
Yeah, or if they're created on the 0 account because they don't have a match in Autotask, and maybe they get 2 or 3 tickets created, and now you're like, oh man, I have 2 or 3 tickets on the wrong account, the contact's on the wrong account. So manually, you're gonna have to go find the right account, create a new contact, type in their name, type in their email address, save it, then go find all the tickets, edit each one, change the account, change the contact, save it, then go find the contact, the old one, and mark it inactive. That could be automated on our side. So you could just, however you want to identify that contact, our side could then find the old contact, mark them as inactive, move every ticket over to the new side, create the contact on the new side, and automate that process pretty easily.
Okay.
I actually had one of our customers reached out to me yesterday. He said that he had 250 Autotask configuration items that had the wrong config item type on them. So he wanted them to go from standard to, I think it was workstation or something like that. He's like, I got these 250 config items. Can you help me? And so in like 20 minutes, we built a really quick workflow that queried for all of the config items that had, very specific information on them that we knew needed to be moved, and edit each one to change it to the other thing you needed. And in like 20 minutes, he was all done. He said, wow, that would have taken hours to go screen by screen, click by click, and edit all those config items. That was kind of a one-off sort of thing. He doesn't need to do it on a recurring basis, but still saved him tons and tons of time.
Mm. And that's a use case I see all the time as well, right? Is people are always wanting to change or update stuff in the product, whether it be config items or anything. And it's very often something they have to manually do. So being able to build a workflow directly through this tool, I think is going to be a massive benefit to most people, and being able to do that really, really quickly, like you say. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I show you a regular expression mailbox?
Yeah. Go for it.
So on this list of mailboxes, you see all these have black text at the beginning. If I scroll in here at the bottom, I've got some with this red text at the beginning. So a regular expression, for those who don't know, is a text string, so a series of characters that define a pattern that you can later match against other text. So we'll use this ticket number one here because it's going to look kind of crazy, but once I explain it, I think it'll make a lot of sense. This string here is basically matching any series of letters followed by a dash, followed by a T, and then a 2, 0, and then 6 more 0 through 9, and then a period, and then 4 more 0 through 9, and then optionally, that's what that parentheses means, optionally another period and 3 more numbers. So this is looking for T, 2, 0, and then 6 more numbers, dot 4 numbers, dot 3 numbers. In other words, this is an Autotask ticket number.
Ticket number, yeah.
What this does is this is an inbound. Actually, let's just skip down here. Let's use this one because it's a little simpler. It's the same format. You'll see this part here matches this part here, but we're just not doing the part at the beginning. So this right here is going to look for anything that looks like a valid ticket number at travis.mxparser.net. So now instead of this being Xerox at a domain or test parser at a domain, this is any ticket number at a domain. And then inside of here, we have probably one rule, if I remember right. Yep, one rule that if this mailbox fires, this is going to look up the ticket number that's in the email address before the @ sign and add a note to that ticket. So now with this one mailbox with one rule and these 5 action steps, every single ticket in this Autotask has a direct email address formatted kind of like this highlighted part. So now I can email any ticket number at a certain domain and update that ticket. And this is super helpful if you can imagine being on the phone with an ISP for a customer because their circuit's down. And the ISP says, oh yeah, we can open a ticket on our side and we can send you updates as the work order gets fixed until the circuit's back online. As a technician, you might tell them, okay, please email support@mydomain.com, but would you please put the ticket number in the subject line? Otherwise, we're going to get all these tickets for all your work order updates. Well, they're not going to do it. You're going to have all these tickets. It's going to be a mess. With this, when they say, hey, we'll send you updates, you say, all right, email me at t20210405.0002@mydomain.com. And now every single update from that ISP regarding that work order is going to go to that ticket every single time, no matter what is in the from address, what's in the to address, the subject doesn't matter. It's always going to go on that ticket. And so it's been really helpful to just consolidate all of those outbound addresses, all those outbound emails onto the right ticket every time.
That's awesome. Okay, so that's sending updates to a ticket without having the ticket number in the subject line. So you can have anything you like in the subject line as long as the email is formatted as ticket number at whatever the domain is.
Yeah. So it's kind of useful for a ticket. you don't need it for a ticket because you could put the ticket number in the subject line. But now let's take that example that I gave and let's go down to the one between these two, this one right here. So this one works for the email address config item dash any series of numbers. So the emails that would work in here would be like config item dash 123 at travis@mxparser.net. If you emailed that, this rule here would fire. Or sorry, this mailbox would match. And on the side of the mailbox, we have a rule that extracts the part after the dash, looks for a config item in Autotask with that ID, and creates a ticket for that config item. So this is really useful for printers, firewalls, UPS devices, and other things out in your infrastructure that send alerts when they go on battery power or when things happen. And you can just hard code into that device, hey, printer, when you send an email, you always send it to config item -275 at mydomain.com. And now every single email from that printer will always be created on the right config item on the right account, no matter what is in the body or who it's from or it matters who it's to because it's being sent directly to its email address. Sure. But then this way, every config item has a direct email address that creates a ticket for that config item, no matter what else is in the email.
That's cool. I really like that. I think that's incredible. I mean, and again, that's something I think that is the built-in processor, built-in parser in Autotask isn't capable of doing that. So, it's just going to want to update a ticket with a number in a subject. But being able to actually email in and update the configuration items specifically, that's really cool.
Yeah, and the powerful thing here isn't that we thought of it and now you can use it. The powerful thing here is that we thought of it and you could build it or something like it. So you or one of your customers might have a use case where they say, you know what, I don't need to send tickets for config items, but every time a ticket comes in, I need to add a billable charge to a particular ticket or to an invoice. All right, well, we could just create a very specific email address for a ticket number or for an invoice number that every time it gets an email, it adds a charge to that ticket, whatever it is. The building blocks are there to build your own custom workflows for whatever makes sense for your business case. And that's really where the power is. Because Autotask could add the ability to create a ticket for a config item. Like they could say, hey, that's a cool workflow, but then that's just one more very specific workflow that's hard coded on the Autotask side. The power over here is that you can come up with whatever you need. And we're not saying, here are the 10 things you can do with our tool. We're saying, here's all the building blocks to now do whatever it is you need to build for your use case in your business.
Okay. All right. And so throughout this, you've been kind of talking all of this to do with Autotask. Is there any other PSA tool that you integrate with, or is it only Autotask?
I'll just say not today. Today we're just with Autotask.
Cool. Plans to go to others?
I would hope to. Yeah. I'll say this. I see tons of value to expand beyond Autotask. But we just, there's other things that we've been spending time on and haven't had a chance to branch out. But I'd love to be able to say that it's not just Autotask. But as of today, I can't say that.
Okay. That's really cool. Cool. Have you got any other cool ones you can show?
Yeah. Let me see what other things pop in here. We have a feature called the Reply All Stormcatcher that I think is pretty fun. So you might know what it is just based on the name there, but imagine you have a customer that emails your support team and carbon copies 10 people in their office. So, someone, one of your customers emails your support, says our, network's having problems, and I'm CCing the boss and the boss's secretary and someone in accounting and someone in HR. So all these people have this email that went into Autotask and created a ticket. Well, if all of those people reply all to that email, you now have 10 new tickets in Autotask because no one has the ticket number at this point because they're all responding to the first email. Has that ever happened to you, Chris?
Millions of times.
Yeah. So our Reply All Stormcatcher is a feature when we're updating tickets in Autotask. It can, actually, let me take a step back. When we create tickets in Autotask, we keep track of the message ID. It's a unique header in every email across the internet. We keep track of what message IDs we've created what tickets for. And then anytime we get an email that comes in that doesn't have a ticket number, if it has a header in it saying that it was created by clicking reply in Outlook or Mail or whatever the app is, that is a reply to a message ID. We look and see if that message ID was creating a ticket for us. And if so, we match them together. So what it means is it doesn't matter what's in the subject line, who it's from, who it's to, or anything. If, so-and-so created a ticket by replying to an email that created a ticket itself, then we put them together. And so in that reply all storm, instead of having 10 or 15 new tickets in Autotask, you have one ticket with 10 or 15 notes on it. Everything's in the right spot. I built it when we had the MSP, and I didn't tell our team about it. And one day we had one customer who's notorious for just CCing everybody and everybody replying, and we all hated it. And we built it, we deployed it, we made it live. And one of my engineers came, he's like, "What did you do?" Because it's pretty magical. Like, what just happened? Everything was in one ticket. It was clean, concise, beautiful. And so that's one of my favorite it's just a checkbox. You just check it, and then our system will do this magic work for you in the background.
Cool. So in terms of, so all of these, you're talking about setting all of these things up, and you showed the library earlier on. So, as an MSP, if they were to sign up with you and buy this product, do you kind of work with them to help them set up all of these kinds of things?
Yeah. So basically, when you first sign up, you get access to it, and you can build whatever you want. And you have access to the library, and we provide email support. So if you have questions, you can do that. For anyone on this particular YouTube, if you just reach out to me and say, "Hey, I saw you on this interview with Chris Tim," I would be glad to do a 1-hour onboarding call with them for no additional charge. So they just sign up, send an email to support@mspintegrations.com before or after they sign up, doesn't really matter. And we'll get that on the calendar. Interactively, me and them work together, and I'll personally build out your first set of rules so that you can hit the ground running and have some good success early on.
Okay, cool. Thank you for that. Yeah, that's brilliant. I'm sure a lot of people will definitely take you up on there, because, looking at these, it looks very, very comprehensive, but equally, I think for somebody who's never seen it before, it could get quite complicated and, to set up. So I think they probably need a lot of hand-holding in the beginning, at least.
Yeah, that's a good way to describe it. It is comprehensive, but it is complicated as well.
Yeah. Yeah, because, and I know I've seen it, a few times, and, when I've tried to set stuff up, I know it's quite, a lot of those things, it can take you a while to get your head around. So it's just good to have somebody that you can say, "Hey, how do I do this?" Or "I need to set this up." So no, that's really cool. I think this is fantastic. I mean, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people at the end of this who are going to be literally bashing your door down. So hopefully this is going to get you a lot of business out of this.
Well, thanks. I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah. So, I mean, is there any other particular things that are, that you wanted to show on this? I mean, is there anything that you haven't gone through yet that somebody might see and want to use?
Yeah, I have a couple of things. I'll keep these really high level. And if any of them are interesting to anyone who's watching this, you can just reach out to me and I'll gladly do a personalized demo of these things. But one of the things is our remote mailboxes. So over here, I showed you hosted earlier. So that's where you're forwarding emails to us. These are remote mailboxes. So this is where we're logging into an IMAP server. This is the IMAP server we're logging into, and we're watching this folder. And then our system is just sucking emails in that are in that folder. So for your support at yourdomain.com, you might have that as an Office 365 mailbox. And you just have our system log into your Office 365, watch the inbox, and then any messages that show up there, pull them in. So you're not forwarding to us, you're actually leaving them in the inbox and we can process them there. And then our system can move them to other folders and kind of file them away. But it's just a different way to get the email in. Once the email's in, the rules are exactly the same. The actions are exactly the same logic is available. But now instead of you having to forward to us, we can grab the email where it is in place. So it's kind of a nice feature. And then over on history, great. If I come over here, I can see this is an example of an email that came in. And, I did some data purging, so this isn't actually showing what I want you to see. But every message that comes in, we keep it for 6 months. And you can see under action history here, you'd be able to see every single step we took, what we queried, what Autotask sent back, and all the particulars about the workflow that happened. So you're never left with this black box where you say, hey, we sent an email in and it showed up an Autotask over here, but we don't know why the system, like we built the rule, but I don't know why it did what it's supposed to do. So here on this screen, you'd be able to see, hey, we looked this up in Autotask. This is the result we got. We pulled this information from the email. Autotask rejected it with whatever. And we give you very detailed logging. So as someone who's building these custom workflows, it makes it really easy to troubleshoot that way. Mm. And then the last kind of quick thing is we have a different product that's really similar called Scheduled Tasks. And everything I've showed you on the incoming emails, those have all been based on emails coming in. Scheduled Tasks will do the exact same types of workflows, same action steps. We can query things, look things up in Autotask. We do them on a schedule instead of when an email comes in. So every Monday morning, do you want to look at all your config items and find all your servers and create a new ticket for every server that, you know, tells you to do something? We can do that. We can create recurring tickets. We can automatically extend contracts. We can review tickets in your Autotask and add notes if they fit a certain criteria. We can query for a particular kind of ticket, format them together and send an email to somebody and say, here's all 10 tickets that match that criteria today. Lots and lots of flexibility there. And this is actually the product that I was telling earlier about those configuration items that were miscategorized. We actually created a scheduled task for that to find all those config items and move them for you. So wow, those are my last three things at quick high level for you.
That's awesome. Okay, so on the scheduled task, so that doesn't need any kind of email to be sent or anything. It just works in the background and just says whatever it is. So go and update all these contracts or go and create this ticket.
Yeah, so you say, you know, do it every Monday or do it every 5 minutes or do it once a year, and it just does it on that recurring schedule.
Okay. So I assume when somebody buys this product, they're obviously, this is going to replace the Autotask incoming processor. They're not actually going to use that in conjunction with this, or is there a case when they might need to use both or can use both?
I'm always a big fan of, I kind of take this from Karl Palachuk, actually, his zero downtime migration philosophy. I'm always a fan of building up new infrastructure next to my existing infrastructure and then slowly moving over and never getting to a point where I have to hard cut over and not be able to go back. So I say that to say that I actually recommend, if you're using the Autotask parser, to continue using it, leave it on, build new logic on our side, and then start sending some messages to us while you're still using the Autotask parser and kind of slowly move in. What you don't want to do is, you know, if you have 10 email boxes on Autotask, you don't want to build 10 more on our side, cut over everything on a Monday morning, and then be like, oh, no, I have all these things that aren't quite exactly as I expected. So I have plenty of people who use both even, who have successful things set up on the Autotask parser that work well for certain instances. And then they use us for some other things that don't work on the Autotask side. And it just, who cares if it's working on Autotask, keep it there. You don't need to move it unless there's something on our side that you need to do. And then, okay, now we'll move that, you know, particular logic over.
Okay. That's awesome. Cool. Well, Travis, this has been absolutely amazing. It's opened my eyes to a lot of stuff. And there's definitely some stuff in here that I can use myself. So I'll be certainly reaching out to you after this. And I know that, you know, I'm already, as you've been talking, I've been thinking of about probably 6 or 7 customers already that need pretty much everything you've talked about. I mean, just, you know, a perfect example is I have one customer who was asking about, you know, changing or renewing contracts on bulk, and they're not able to do that easily in Autotask or at all. So, you know, having something like this, I think literally they would pay the money to get this tool just to use that feature. So
I'll tell you, when you sign up for Email to AT, it actually goes into my Autotask and creates a new contract and a service bundle and activates it that way. And that's how I do billing for my own customers. And so my own system logs into my Autotask, and every single month extends the end date of every contract. So it's 2 months in the future. So every month I add a month to every contract. I don't have contracts that are 900 years long. Like Autotask makes you pick an end date for recurring services contract, which I don't get. I think it makes sense in some cases, but in my case, I don't need that. And so I just perpetually edit the end date every single month. It's always 2 months out in the future. And so it's worked out well for me for 10 years doing that. It's been just a great setup that way.
Awesome. So, Travis, if anyone wants to get hold of you, what's the best way they can do that?
Yeah, so if they want information on the product, they can email support@mspintegrations.com. If they want to reach out to me, I'm always willing to talk. It's travis.austin@mspintegrations.com.
Awesome. Thank you, Travis. I'll make sure that those get put into the notes below. So, and thank you, so much for your time. Really, really appreciate it. And, always in awe of what you're doing. I mean, this is just an incredible product.
Thanks. It's been a pleasure to be here, and I look forward to, helping out in the future. Any questions you have, I'd love to help you build some cool workflows for your Autotask.
Excellent. Thanks, Travis. Really appreciate it.
For sure. Thanks, Chris.
Thanks. Cheers.